Good afternoon, everyone, once again. Thanks a lot for joining our session today. My name is Konstantin. I will be your presenter today, and we will be talking about ApprovalMax for not-for-profits. Non-for-profits is a special sector for us, to be honest, because we have lots of clients from this sector. We have lots of non-for-profit organizations using ApprovalMax. And we're actually having lots of chats, discussions, webinars with not-for-profits. And we are receiving lots of interesting feedback, lots of interesting insights from not-for-profits. And we decided, well, why not having a special webinar about this topic? Actually, we did have a couple of webinars already. And right now on the YouTube, the latest webinar that you will find is a webinar with Grant Thornton, New Zealand. And you're very welcome to watch it, by the way, watch the recording. In this webinar, Barry Baker presents how he sees typical challenges of not-for-profits and how ApprovalMax helps to address these challenges. And we decided that, well, let us kind of supplement this webinar with Grant Thornton with a demo of how ApprovalMax works for not-for-profits. And well, that's what this webinar is all about. So what is our plan for today? We will start with a brief theoretical introduction into what is ApprovalMax as a company, what is ApprovalMax as a product, what are the key workflows that we cover, what are the key features, etc. And we will actually talk specifically about challenges that we see that not-for-profit organizations have. And these challenges that we have in the slides, they are actually based on all these numerous discussions that we're having with our clients from not-for-profits. And then we'll have a demonstration part. So I'll show how ApprovalMax actually looks like, how it works. And hopefully it will give you a high-level, at least, overview of what ApprovalMax is as a solution. One organizational note that I would make here is that there is a Q&A area right in the Zoom screen. So you can click on this Q&A button and ask questions during the webinar, or maybe at the end of the webinar if you prefer. And I'll do my best to answer all the questions that are coming in today. Well, I suggest let's get started. So first of all, let me share some basic background about ApprovalMax, the company, so who we are and what we do. We have offered our solution as a zero-code system in January 2016. So we are about 5.5 years old, and we have achieved the top preferred app partner level with Jira. We are featured in a number of playbooks that Jira has prepared. And Jira, by the way, is doing a very good job here. Jira is providing organizations in different sectors with different needs kind of guidelines into what are the key apps that organizations in the sector could be using in order to address their needs. Or maybe sometimes they are talking about different apps that are addressing similar need, like for example, cash flow management. And ApprovalMax is actually featured in a couple of such playbooks, and we are very proud of this. Also, we are very proud that we are a partner of the year, not once, but actually a couple of times. And this makes us very happy. Many thanks to those who have voted for ApprovalMax as a partner of the year. So what is the solution that ApprovalMax provides? The core thing that we do is automation of approval processes for both accounts payable and accounts receivable. What are the key things that we offer here? First of all, it is multi-role, multi-tiered approval workflow. You can define rules that would be routing different types of documents to different people. For example, you can define workflows in a way that bills are routed to different managers based on which GL code a particular bill is related to. And you could be actually also using different other criteria, such as amount of the bill, amount of the purchase order, etc. So that is the core idea behind multi-role and multi-tiered approval workflows. Another important idea is ApprovalMax provides different ways for approvers to work. We are sure that ApprovalMax is only properly implemented when approvers are happy, right? So when approvers are seeing the value in the product and when they can work in a way they used to work before. And when it comes to approvals, it means that if they are used to authorize something and to work with something else via emails, they want to receive an email notification asking for the approval. They don't want to do it in any other way. If some managers prefer to work from the mobile, they want to receive a push notification on the mobile and make a decision from the mobile device, not in any other way. And ApprovalMax provides different ways for approvers to work in order to make them happy about the solution. And finally, the third thing that is quite important is about audit trails. And this is specifically important for not-for-profit organizations because as we're going to discuss in the upcoming slides, it is one of the key needs that not-for-profit organizations have in our view. Have clear audit reports, audit trails for each and every bill and purchase order that is being processed by the organization. What are the key workflows that ApprovalMax provides? We cover, as I have mentioned, both accounts payable and accounts receivable side of the organization. But actually all the key workflows that are, I would say, the most popular workflows, they are all on the accounts payable side. This is purchase order creation approval workflow and bill review and approval workflow. So these are the most important workflows. Many of organizations that use ApprovalMax, they start with just bill approval process. And this is kind of a first step in establishing a financial control in the organization. But then later on, they are oftentimes moving to the purchase order workflow. Well, not switching off the bill workflow, but adding purchase order workflows on top. And with purchase order workflow on top, they ensure that they have proactive control over the expenses. Because the problem with bill approval workflow is that once you already have a bill, once you have a supplier invoice, it means that very likely goods have already been delivered and services have been provided. And very likely you will anyway need to pay this bill. But maybe this goods should not have been ordered in the first place. And purchase order workflow allows to prevent such things from happening. With purchase order workflow, you are enabling approval of the very of the intention to purchase something, right? So actually the best practice that we have in ApprovalMax is to use both bill approval process and purchase order approval process. But well, it's a good enough start to use just bill review and approval process. Another important feature that I would like to emphasize here is matching of bills to purchase orders. Once you have both bill workflow and purchase order workflow, it makes perfect sense to, well, link one to another and calculate the purchase order balance. So let me provide a very basic example. So imagine you raise a purchase order for 10,000 Australian dollars, and then you start receiving supplier invoices. 1,000, another couple thousand, another 1,000, etc. And of course, a typical question that is arising then, so what is left from the purchase order? And if you do matching in ApprovalMax, if you link bills to purchase orders in ApprovalMax, ApprovalMax will calculate this purchase order balance for you. It will take amount of the purchase order, deduct amounts of all the bills that are matched to this purchase order, and then say, well, you have, for example, 3,000 left, right? That is quite important in terms of monitoring your expenses and actually doing some important reports. Actually could be used for accrual reports. So this is what ApprovalMax does on a high level. So let us now talk a little bit about not-for-profits. As I have mentioned, this is what we have learned from not-for-profits and from accounting practices that serve not-for-profits. If you like to dig into more details and hear what specifically Grant Thornton New Zealand thinks about this, you're very welcome to check out our YouTube channel for a separate webinar on this topic. But here, let me just summarize on a high level what are the key challenges that we see that not-for-profits have. First of all, it is the level of accountability that not-for-profits have. There are different stakeholders. Well, there are organizations and there are people that give money to a not-for-profit, right? And well, they want to make sure that their money is spent wisely. Then there is government that also wants to make sure that not-for-profits are spending money wisely and well, not committing some things that they should not do, etc. The second thing is limited funding, right? So not-for-profits, they don't have all the money in the world and they need to prioritize their spendings to make sure that they are making those purchases that they really need to make and delay or completely cancel those purchases that they should not actually do. Another thing is that not-for-profits oftentimes have quite complex distributed operations that, well, sometimes tend to become a mess, to be honest. Unfortunately, this is happening. And they oftentimes have different systems to support all these complex operations. Well, this is not making things easier. And finally, audits. I think that is the most important word that we see from our not-for-profit clients. They are saying, well, we are subject for audits, we have lots of audits, and that is taking time, and well, we just need to actually spend lots of time that could have been spent on a more productive things sometimes just to go through audits. So these are the challenges that we see. And what are some, as we phrase this, pressure points for not-for-profits? The most important one is actually usage of paper, meaning that not-for-profits receive supplier invoices as paper documents. They oftentimes issue purchase orders as paper documents, and they have paper here, paper there. And it means that overall efficiency of operations is, well, not the best, I would say. And if some reports need to be prepared, if you need to get some actuals into how actually P&L looks like right now, well, it takes time. And this actually brings us to the next topic, to the next bullet point here. So when a not-for-profit organization needs to prepare some reports for stakeholders, for some government-related reports, then they need to spend lots of time, lots of effort, and they are often even missing deadlines because they cannot produce all the required reports in time. That's quite a typical problem that we hear from our clients. The third one is lack of insights. So since accounting teams, they are oftentimes busy with these reports and going for audits and working with paper, they understand, they realize that they do not have enough time to work on insights in order to understand what is actually happening and what are some opportunities to improve the operations, where the money is spent, and how we can actually make our NFP more efficient. And the fourth one, this is control and safety. This, by the way, was oftentimes named when we talk to NFPs as the first problem, the number one problem. Not-for-profits need to make sure that they are in control of what is actually happening in terms of money spendings, right? And it is a nightmare when there is some significant sum of money, sometimes even not significant sum of money, is spent on something that it should not have been spent on, right? Because, well, once again, there are stakeholders, there is audit, there are some government regulations, and it's a big problem when you need to address the thing that already happened, right? A related thing is safety. So not-for-profits need to make sure that each spend is properly authorized and make sure that when an audit comes, there is a clear proof that each particular bill, each particular purchase order has been authorized by all the managers that should typically authorize such type of bills and purchase orders. So yeah, that is common pressure points as we see them. And at this point, let me make a quick stop and let me actually run a poll, because we would like to actually get some insights from yourself, if you don't mind. So currently on your screen, on the screen, you see a question, and the question is about actually what are your main pressure points as an NFP organization or as an accounting practice that is servicing NFPs. Very interesting to see what are results this time. So, some insight to share. That's not the first time we're running this poll. We have done this in the UK version of this webinar, and we have done this in the Grant Thornton webinar. And it is often always very interesting to see what are the results in a particular audience. So I'm not going to share the results of previous surveys, not to interfere of the results of this one. But of course, we will share with you results of this particular survey. So let's give it another second. I see lots of votes. That's very nice. Thanks a lot. And more votes are coming. Good. Okay. I see that more than 80% have voted. Thanks a lot. And here are the results. So I see that, this time controls and safety got the same amount of votes as effort and timeliness. Well, that's interesting. Actually, controls and safety was the winner at our previous webinar that we ran for the UK audience just a couple of hours ago. Well, that's interesting. Thanks a lot for sharing. Thanks a lot. Good. So let me then move forward. And let us switch to what is ApprovalMax doing, how it helps to address these typical problems of NFPs. And we'll be talking about two workflows. The first one is our flagship workflow, I would say, the main workflow that we provide. This is bill automation, bill approval process. And let us discuss how it works and how ApprovalMax fits the picture, because there are some other add-ons that are also part of this end-to-end process, tools like Dext, HubDoc, and Xero, of course, itself, right? So let us see how all these different apps fit together. Let me start with the following important points. So you see that there is Xero mentioned twice here on the slide. And the idea here is that all those bills that are processed, that are received from the supplier, they are, of course, first ending up in Xero, in awaiting approval status. So at this point, bills are already in Xero, but they are not fully approved, and they do not yet hit the general ledger, right? So they are sitting in awaiting approval status in Xero. And fully approved bills, they are sitting in awaiting payment status in Xero. And those bills that are in awaiting approval, in awaiting payment status, they are already hitting the GL, so they affect the P&L. And important point here is that what ApprovalMax is doing, ApprovalMax in essence is moving bills from awaiting approval status to the awaiting payment status. So the overall flow looks the following way. So first we have tools like Dext or HubDoc or Data Malina, Auto Entry, Easy Bills, or some other tools that are helping you to save some time on extracting the information from a paper version of the invoice, or it could be a PDF file or an image, right? And this is the first step in the workflow. Usage of these tools is optional, by the way. You could be using Xero itself, so you could be just manually entering bills into Xero. That's perfectly fine. Usage of Dex and other tools is not mandatory, but they do save lots of time, to be honest. Also, you could be just copying purchase orders to bills. That is another alternative way to get information into Xero as bills. Once you have this information in Xero, in awaiting approval status, and once again, let me mention that those bills that are in awaiting approval status that do not yet hit the GL, they are not a part of P&L, so it is safe to post them into awaiting approval status. And then comes the approval process. So once there is a bill in awaiting approval status in Xero, ApprovalMax just picks it up and starts this workflow with different steps, with different rules, with notifications, exception handling, etc. Once all the approvers are comfortable with the bill, they are clicking, once they all click approve button, then the bill is moved from awaiting approval status to the awaiting payment status. That's how it works. We will see it live in just a couple of minutes, I think. Before that, let me show you one more slide. This is how purchase order workflow fits the picture. So when you have purchase orders on top, of course, you first need to create a purchase order, submit it for approval, and get it approved. Once you have a fully approved purchase order, then you could start working with a bill. You could just copy purchase order to a bill, that's fine, or you could be using these data entry tools to process an actual supplier invoice received from the supplier. And then you could do matching. So as a part of the bill approval process, you could link bills to purchase orders, and ApprovalMax will check purchase order balance and some other additional control points are in place. Good, so we're done with the theoretical part. Let me now switch to the product itself, and let me show you how ApprovalMax actually looks like and works. So here is ApprovalMax. We're currently in the main screen that is typical for approvers who work with ApprovalMax. Here, approvers see all those bills and purchase orders that they need to authorize. Currently, you see that I have just one purchase order awaiting for my approval. And actually, as a part of this demo, I will submit a Jira bill for approval and I will authorize it. So we'll be coming to that a little bit later. But let us actually start with a little bit different thing. Let us take a look from ApprovalMax from administrative standpoint. So how do you configure workflows and how do you make sure that bills are authorized by appropriate managers within the organization? To do so, I'm opening this navigation bar, and here you see that we're currently in this demo company UK. That's just a demo company provided by Jira. I got my organization ApprovalMax connected to it. And let me go to the approval workflows area here. Here it is. In approval workflows area, you can see all those workflows that are possible to configure in ApprovalMax. And we're now interested specifically in this one, bill creation, review, and approval workflow. So let me click on it. And let us first start with talking about this workflow setup on a high level, just to link it to this theoretical part that we had. So as you remember, in the theoretical part, we have discussed that first bills are submitted for approval in Jira. They go for approval, and then they are pushed back to Jira in a different status. That's exactly what you see currently on the screen. The first step is saying pulling from Jira. It means that ApprovalMax goes to Jira, kind of knocks on the door and asks, well, Jira, do you have any new bills awaiting approval? If they do have some, we pick them up and start the approval process. Let's jump to the very last step. Once a bill is fully approved by all the required managers, it is moved back to Jira in awaiting payment status, right? So these are basic kind of boring, almost boring steps. The most interesting part is happening here. That is, by the way, the core part of ApprovalMax, of what we do. Between these two edge steps, we have approval steps. In my particular case, there are 3 authorization steps: region manager approval, CFO approval, board approval. But this is just a demo setup. You could have any number of steps, and this is actually very easy to change the workflow. Just to give you an idea, let me remove this step completely, board approval, we don't need it. And let me change one more thing. Let me add one more approver in the first step. So instead of 3 approvers, I will have one more approver called approver 03, like this, right? So that's how easy it is to change the workflow. You do not need to be an engineer, a technical person to configure the workflow. So yeah, multiple approval steps. We're now down to 2 steps: region manager approval and CFO approval. And let us now take a look at another very important feature. In each step of the approval workflow, there is so-called approval matrix. Approval matrix allows to define rules according to which bills will be routed to different people. In my case, in my particular demo organization, I have defined this region manager approval step because the idea here is that we have different regions within the organization and different managers are in charge of different regions. Let us see how approval matrix could look like in this case. So I'm clicking on this matrix button, and here comes the matrix. So we have these 4 approvers. I am one of them. And these rules are currently saying that approver 1 is in charge of east side and south region. Approver 2 is in charge of West Coast, Konstantin is in charge of North, and approver 3 is not in charge of anything yet. We'll fix it now. And let me first start with explaining what region means. Region is a tracking category, as you're likely guessing, a tracking category defined in Jira. In case you have different tracking categories, in case they are called, say, department, cost center, G, or something, of course, they will be synced up. They will be synchronized. And in ApprovalMax, in your ApprovalMax organization, you will see exactly those tracking categories. There could be up to 2 of them that you have defined in the Jira file. So back to this particular setup, let us fix this kind of problem that we have. We see that approver 1 is in charge of 2 regions. Maybe it's not the problem itself, but actually we have one more approver. So let's give them something to work on. Let's make them in charge of South region. So now we have 4 approvers. Each of them is in charge of a separate region, right? Kind of idealistic setup, to be honest. Oftentimes it looks a little bit different. So some people are in charge of 5 regions, while another person could be in charge of 1 region. That's also perfectly fine. Also, it is possible to define rules based on different criteria. It's not all about tracking categories. You could be using supplier, GL code, amount, of course, and other fields. Let us switch to the second step. In the second step, I have defined a very straightforward rule. CFO should approve everything that exceeds 10,000. So let us imagine a situation. There is a bill submitted for approval that is coded with North tracking category. And at the same time, this bill is coded, exceeds 10,000, right? If it is coded with North region and it does exceed 10,000, it will be routed to myself for approval because I'm in charge of North region, as we have seen, and it will be sent to CFO for approval because it exceeds 10,000. At the same time, if there is a bill that is coded with North, but that does not exceed 10,000, it will be routed to myself still. I'm in charge of North region, but it will not go to CFO because it does not exceed the threshold. Well, let us now take a look at how this works in connection to Jira. So I have just opened my Jira file. Let me create a bill here. And let me code it at least 1 line item with North tracking category. And let me submit it for approval. And we will see that it will be routed to myself for approval once it is hitting, once it hits ApprovalMax, right? So let me just enter something here. Let me pick some date. Important part, region should be North. In this case, it will be routed to myself. Finally, I'm clicking Save and Submit for approval. And now we need to go back to ApprovalMax. And let me double check that I have updated the workflow. And let me now go back here and click on the synchronization button. So ApprovalMax goes right now to Jira. ApprovalMax is asking Jira whether there are new bills submitted for approval. And ApprovalMax will now present this new bill to myself because it has been, well, it has been found in Jira. Here it is. So that's the bill that I have just submitted for approval. Yeah, I have just submitted for approval. So how approvers work in ApprovalMax? Approvers have 3 ways to work in ApprovalMax. First of all, they can do exactly what I'm doing right now. They could go to the browser. They can check what are those documents waiting for their approval and can approve documents here. Or they could be working via their email client. So let me skip the demo part for email approval just to save us some time. In the essence, they receive an email notification and they can click approve button right in the email. Or they can even reply to the email with the word approved, and it will be also counted as approval. And the third option finally is to use mobile applications. We have mobile apps for both Android and iPhone. Currently, I'm showing you our listing in Google Play. And these mobile apps, they provide pretty much all the same functionalities that we provide with the web version for approvers, right? And for requesters, of purchase orders and bills. We don't have administrative part in mobiles. Well, it's a little bit too much for a small, tiny device, to be honest. But all those things that approvers can do in web version, they can do on the mobile as well. So back to the web version. What approvers do, they receive this document. They can check all the details. If there is an original supplier invoice attached, they will see it here, and they will be able to do side-by-side view. And they finally click approve or reject button. By the way, in this case, for this particular bill, my approval will be final approval. Because, well, first of all, I'm the only manager approving in the first step, exactly according to the rules that we have defined. I'm in charge of North. And the second part is CFO approval is not required, because this bill does not exceed the thresholds that we have defined. If this bill would have been for 15,000, then CFO will be approving this bill after myself. And one last final thing that I would like to highlight here. So once I click approve button, this bill is now fully approved, and this bill is now synchronized to Jira as a fully approved bill. And this bill is getting an audit report. And this audit report is exactly the thing that I would like to show you, because it's very important for not-for-profits. Audit report file looks like this, and it has two parts. It has a snapshot of how exactly a bill looked like when it was approved, supplier details, line item details, totals, etc. And the second part is the list of approvers who have authorized this particular bill and when. So as you can see, Konstantin is approver of this bill and has made a decision on May 13, right? So that's how such audit reports look like. By the way, they are also pushed to Jira. And if I'm now opening this very same bill in Jira using a link, you will find this audit report attached to a Jira file. So when it comes to this audit process that not-for-profits have a lot, fortunately or unfortunately, they will auditors will be able to see this audit reports here in Jira right away. Right. Good. Well, this is what I wanted to show you. Before we're switching to questions, let me mention one important thing. Is that we now have a special offer for not-for-profits. So if you would like to start using ApprovalMax as a not-for-profit, you will get an additional discount on top of the standard discounts that we have for not-for-profits. So what you need to do, you can go to approvalmax.com/NFP and fill in a simple form. So you are very welcome to just type in the email address or click on it in the PDF file that we will send after the webinar. I'm switching to the Q&A area now. You're very welcome to type your questions there. I see that I have already a bunch of questions, which I'm very happy about, because there are lots of nice questions, and I'm happy answering this question. Happy to answer all these questions. You're very welcome to click on this Q&A button as well and type your questions there. So let me actually switch on appropriate slide for Q&A session, and let me now take a look at the Q&A. Oops, one sec. Okay, here it is. Doesn't want to show in a full screen presentation for some reason. Anyway, the first question is, if it goes over 10,000, then goes to CFO. Does it go to the region manager to recommend it before it goes to CFO? Well, that's a perfect question. Workflow in ApprovalMax is a sequential workflow. It means that steps are happening one after another. And in our particular case, with this region manager approval step, region manager will approve the bill first, and then only after they approve the bill, it will go to CFO. And that is the setup that many managers like. Well, those managers who authorize in second, third, etc. steps, because they are not bothered about a bill unless it is authorized on the previous level. Right? They're not bombarded with lots of emails. They receive a bill only once it is approved on the previous level. I hope this answers the question, and thanks for asking. It actually helps to illustrate how the overall system works. The next question is, can we add other documents to this transaction? For example, bank transactions to support the bill has actually been paid. Our auditors usually require this. Well, matching with bill transactions, it is a little bit separate process. So it is not happening as a part of the approval process. It is happening later on. So first of all, the bill is authorized, then it is matched with the transaction. There is one exception though. There are some cases when the bill is going for the approval already being paid, right? So there's a bill that is kind of already paid, and then it still needs to go for the approval just to make sure that it has all the signatures. And we have a special support for such case with actually direct integration to Dext. So in Dext, when you're processing a bill, there is a special checkbox saying, well, this bill has already been paid. We preserve this information and we push this payment information to zero together with the bill itself, right? So in this direct integration with Dext, we do support such flow. The next question is, if an invoice is rejected, is there a field to enter the reason why? Yes, there is one. Well, let me actually demonstrate this. Why not? I have everything here in the next step. Let me just go here and let me go back to the decision required list. Here's the reject button. Once I click on it, I get a pop-up asking me to provide a reason. And this reason, it is logged into the audit trail. And in audit trail, it will be visible that, well, Konstantin has rejected this bill with the following command. And this command, by the way, it will be sent to a dedicated email address so that accounting team can see that, well, this particular bill has been rejected and here is the reason for rejection. And maybe it could make sense to make some changes and resubmit it for approval. So yeah, there is a field to enter the reason. Thanks for asking. The next one, if a purchase order needs changing before it is approved, can this be done in ApprovalMax? It has been done in Jira. Well, that's a good question. It works differently for bills and purchase orders, to be honest. Let me start with purchase orders, since the question is about purchase orders. In purchase orders, it is not possible to make changes as a part of the approval process. We see that oftentimes it is just fine for approvers to provide a command saying that, well, why do we want to order this stuff, right? So let us not do this, or please change the GL code, right? So typically it works fine. Worst case, some changes could be done after the approval in Jira, right? For bills, it's a little bit different because oftentimes when you have a supplier invoice, you need to fix the coding because of course suppliers have no clue what are the tracking categories that should be used, what are the GL codes. Data entry tools are doing a good job oftentimes to best guess what are the account codes that should be used here, but they are not getting them right in 100% cases, of course. And that's why as a part of the bill approval process, we have a review and coding step. In this review and coding step, you can actually make some adjustments to a bill. And it is done in a smart way in ApprovalMax, which means that it is not possible to completely break the logic of the bill. So let me rephrase it. So if there is a bill for £1,000, it will still be a bill for £1,000 after the coding, and supplier will be the same. It's not possible to change the supplier. It's possible to change GL codes. It's possible to change tracking categories. It is possible to split line items. So instead of having one line item for £1,000 for region South, you could have two line items with 500 to region South and another 500 to region North, for example. That is possible to do. So yeah, back to the question, with purchase orders, it's not possible. It's either their commands or the changes could be done in Jira. In bill workflow, it is possible to do. The next question is, can you amend the purchase order value to match an invoice? The purchase order was missing some costs. Well, that's a good one. There are three ways how these differences could be handled. So, well, imagine you raise a purchase order for, once again, 1,000. You send it to the supplier. Supplier sends you a bill, and it is 1,100. Right. So, what do you need to do? There are three ways to do this. To handle the situation. The first one is say, well, that's fine. Yeah, purchase order was for that 1,000, bill is for 1,100. We didn't know about this additional costs. We'll match them anyway. ApprovalMax will allow to do so. ApprovalMax will show a warning saying, well, looks like bill amount exceeds purchase order amount. but still it will be possible to do the matching and to approve. And you can just see that in reports that, well, purchase order for balance for this purchase order is negative. Well, why not, right? It is considered by many of our customers a normal situation when the purchase order was not the perfect guess about the actual cost. That's fine. Some other customers are saying, no, that's not quite a good situation. We are running into these differences between bills and purchase orders. It's not good. What they prefer to do, they prefer to just change purchase order in zero. They just go to zero and say, well, it's not 1,000, it's 1,100. And then there is a link, there is a match between bill and the purchase order. And the third case is to say, well, since we had this purchase order of 1,000 and it's not the full cost, let us create another purchase order for the difference and then match bill with both purchase orders, which is possible to do in ApprovalMax, by the way. And that is the third way to address this difference between purchase order and a bill. To be honest, I'm not in a position to pick one of those and name it the best one. It is up to you based on what is the specifics of your situation. I hope my answer helps you to sort this out a bit. Thanks a lot for asking. So let me switch to the next one. If you have multiple lines in one bill with different tracking categories, does ApprovalMax separate them for approving process? Well, that's also a very good one. So let's imagine a case. We have a bill. There are two line items. One is coded with north, another one is coded with south. And we have a rule in ApprovalMax that north related bills are approved by Konstantin, south related bills are approved by Maria, for example. So what is going to happen? And the answer is that such bill with two tracking categories will be assigned to both approvers, and both approvers will need to make a decision. They will be both approving the whole bill, so we don't have kind of approval of separate line items. So it's not possible to do, well, because in the essence, Jira doesn't provide such capability. And we want to be in line with what Jira provides. In the essence, both Maria and myself, we approve the whole bill just to make sure that we are both comfortable with it. But in the essence, what we are approving the way how this bill affects our departments or our regions, right? So that's how it works. I hope this answers the question. And the next one is, can the approver change the bill due date or account code if they want to assign the deterioration budget to pay bill early? It is possible to change account code. It is possible to change tracking categories, as we have discussed as a part of this review and coding process. Bill due date currently cannot be changed. And this is actually for the following reasons. So we see that planning of the payment is a little bit different process. Payment planning is happening already in Jira using a separate field, which is called scheduled payment date. So once all the bills are processed, then someone from the accounting team could be setting this scheduled payment date. And if approver wants to indicate to the accounting team which dates they would prefer to have, they could just post a command. They could approve the bill saying, well, let's pay it next month, something like this. And then accounting team could take this into account and set a proper planned schedule date for the bill. Thanks a lot for asking. Let me take a look at the next one. The next one is, can the region manager leave comments for the CFO during the approval process, just in case description were left off of the purchase order when created? Yes, for sure. In ApprovalMax, we have, let me actually very briefly showcase this. We have comments area here in the bottom of the screen, and approver and requester, they could actually have a chat here. They could, some of them could be saying, well, what this bill is all about, and then the question could be, don't you remember we have requested, we got a request to buy the stuff. So it could be a chat here, and it will be logged here in ApprovalMax. And well, it is important oftentimes for the history, because after a couple of months, it is oftentimes not clear, well, what happened exactly. And with ApprovalMax, you have this whole history. Thanks for asking. Let me switch to the next one. And the next one is, when the bill process is used, do you still have the tier approval as we have the need for two authorities for a certain amount of bills? Yeah, well, that is the essence of the bill approval workflow, that there are different tiers, right? And you could be having any number of steps. You could have one-step authorization, two-step authorization, and it could be applied both to bills and purchase orders. And sometimes the idea is that for purchase orders, the workflow is quite complex because department managers need to make sure that this needs to be done, and then CFO approves it. And for bills, the workflow is simplified because, well, the purchase order has already been approved, and it is just a matter of making sure it's not a fraud, it's not a duplicate. So it's simplified, but still it's a good idea to have bill workflow, bill approval process anyway, because the fact that purchase order has been approved does not guarantee that the bill is not a fake, right? It's not a fraudulent bill, it's not a duplicate. So the best practice here is to have both purchase order workflow in place and bill workflow in place. I hope I got the question right. If I did not, sorry about that. I could actually comment later on top. The next question is, where do the electronic copies of the invoices live, on the Jira transaction or in ApprovalMax? Well, when a bill is created in Jira, it has kind of digital version with, well, like you see here, numbers, and it has the original supplier invoice. So it is originally stored in Jira. Well, to be honest, if you're using a tool like Dext, it is first of all stored in Dext, right? Because you send this supplier invoice to Dext, then they push it to Jira. It is now stored in Jira, and then it is sent for approval to ApprovalMax, and there is a copy in ApprovalMax. So in the essence, you have 3 copies of the document. Well, it's not duplication because it's all the same thing, right? And the ApprovalMax is always in sync with Jira. So if you make changes in Jira, they are reflected in ApprovalMax. And if there is no original document in Jira, of course, there is you approvers won't see it because, well, of course, ApprovalMax cannot take it from nowhere. So it should be originally in Jira. I hope this answers the questions. So let me take a look at the next one. When matching the purchase order and the bill, if they match and the purchase order has been approved, does the bill also need to approve? Well, yes. So currently the logic is you approve a purchase order, you receive a bill, you do the matching, and you still approve a bill. And the matching at this point does not reflect, does not affect bill approval process. We do have some ideas, to be honest, to take into the account matching status of a bill, to make sure to simplify the process, to give an ability to simplify the process a little bit for those bills that are fully matching the purchase order, right? Say, okay, to allow the following setup, that if bill is fully matched to a PO, we can just skip a couple of steps, right? Currently, this is not in place. That's what we have in mind. Back to the question, at this point, yes, you have kind of double approval. First of all, you approve an intention to purchase something, and then you approve a bill to make sure that this has been properly executed. Goods delivered, services provided, it's not a duplicate, it's not a fraudulent, it's properly coded, etc. So it is just a little bit different meaning of the approval. The first one is let's buy it, and the second one, yes, it is the bill is perfectly corrected, it's not a fraud. The next one is, can the reports filter be enhanced to include paid date rather than just yes, no for pay? Well, that's a good point, Paul. Thanks for asking. I see you have experience using ApprovalMax. I'm really glad you do. That's a good idea. So extend the filter in the reports a little bit. If you could send a quick email to support@approvalmax.com, we will make sure that we're not losing this inquiry. I'll anyway make a note for myself, but just in case, if you send an email to support@approvalmax.com, we will for sure not forget about this because it will be a part of our ticketing system. Makes perfect sense, Paul. Yeah, thanks for asking. The next question is, can you use ApprovalMax on its own without being attached to Jira or other accounting system? Well, you can. We do have so-called standalone workflows, but to be honest, the flexibility and the number of features and the overall value is not that significant as compared to when ApprovalMax is connected to Jira and or QuickBooks Online, right? We have 2 integrations, Jira and QuickBooks Online. So if you're using some other accounting system, well, let us know which one. chances are that we could be just integrating with this system as well. So using ApprovalMax as a standalone, possible to do, but yeah, not as powerful ApprovalMax is in this case. Thanks for asking. The next question is the approver name recorded in the history and notes section under the bill in Jira? Well, currently not, due to technical reasons. There are some, technical obstacles that we'll need to overcome. Names of approvers are now recorded in Jira as a part of this audit report file. So in Jira, let me switch to it quickly. In Jira, for all those bills that are approved in ApprovalMax, there is an audit report file attached, and you can easily access it here in the top right corner by clicking here. So this is the same PDF file that we have seen in ApprovalMax. It is saying Konstantin has approved this bill. So yeah, it is there, but not in the notes section, but in this PDF file. The next one is, I'm not sure how the purchase order part of the workflow fits into our organization. Can the workflow start with the step fetching bills from Jira? Yes, that's perfectly fine, Karen. It's not a mandatory thing to have purchase order workflow. It's an optional thing. It is a best practice, to be honest, to add purchase order workflow, maybe later on when you have bill approval process in place. But it is perfectly fine, and that's what most of organizations that are using ApprovalMax do. They start with just bill approval process. In your terminology, fetching bills from Jira. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Not a problem at all. The next question is the amounts that's set for approver include tax or exclude tax? Well, actually, we have both options available. So let me go to the approval workflow. In the approval matrix, there is a setting that basically defines whether ApprovalMax will be looking at net amount or gross amount. Here it is. Total amount, net or gross. So it's both, right? Up to you. The next question is, how does the approval process for the invoice link to the purchase order? Well, first of all, you need to have a purchase order. You create a purchase order in ApprovalMax. It is approved in ApprovalMax. It is sent to the supplier, and now it resides in Jira. So the purchase order part is done. Then supplier invoice is sent to you by the supplier. You put it into Jira somehow, could be manually entered, could be processed by Dext or Hubdoc or some other tool, And then you link, do the matching. You link particular bill to a particular purchase order. And then ApprovalMax will do all this math saying that, well, bill amount exceeds purchase order amount, or bill amount is matching exactly the purchase order amount. So that's the overall idea. Thanks for asking. And the next question is ApprovalMax compatible with Reckon accounting systems? Currently not. We, to be honest, didn't get too many inquiries about the Reckon accounting system, but well, we are open to any feature suggestions, and our roadmap, to be honest, it is 99% defined by our customers, right? Or prospective customers. So if we get enough inquiries saying that we want ApprovalMax to get integrated with Reckon accounting systems, why not? Right? We are open for all such considerations. Thanks a lot for asking. Let me also check our chat. Yes, so I see that Maria has posted a link to best practices webinar with Grant Thornton. I suggest you take a look if you are interested in the topic. It is quite nice. A recording of the webinar, yes, it will be available within 24 hours. Then are you able to demonstrate the same process, but with first starting with a purchase order and matching? Well, to be honest, it will take some time. So I suggest you take a look at some videos at the YouTube channel. And I'm afraid that if I start doing this demonstration part, that we will be here for another 15 minutes. And I already feel guilty that we are almost an hour in this webinar. Sorry about that. So you can take a look at the YouTube session. We have one recorded about purchase orders, or we can actually schedule a call and go for this demo together. The next one is, this one we have discussed, the one from Paul. Okay, this one we have discussed. And the last one, I think, how is the link to QuickBooks Online different from Jira? since it doesn't have two-stage process for awaiting? Well, that is a very good question, Jane. So you are right, absolutely right about the key thing about QuickBooks Online. In QuickBooks Online, you do not have different statuses of bills. So in QuickBooks Online, it is either there or it is not there, right? So that's the only differentiation you have for bills in QuickBooks Online. That's why it works differently. First of all, you could be creating bills right in ApprovalMax. So you create a bill in ApprovalMax, you attach supplier invoice in ApprovalMax, it is getting approved, and only after the final approval, it is pushed to QuickBooks Online. By the way, we had a chat with Intuit guys, developers of QuickBooks Online, and they said, well, that's a perfectly fine way. And actually, we expect that only fully approved bills are hitting the QuickBooks Online. So the recommended process, the first version, I will say, of recommended process is create bills in ApprovalMax. We do not have, unfortunately, the data recognition tool ourselves. So you'll need to just manually enter the data. But you can do this in ApprovalMax, it will get approved, and at the final stage, it will be pushed to QuickBooks Online. But if you do want to have automated data entry, you can use our integration with Dext. We do have direct integration with Dext that it also works for QuickBooks Online. And in this case, the process looks like send the document to Dext, it is extracting the data, pushing it to ApprovalMax. ApprovalMax is authorizing the bill, and ApprovalMax sends it to QuickBooks Online once it is fully approved, right? So that's how we overcome this this problem with QuickBooks Online not having different statuses for bills. I hope this this makes sense. Well, I think I have answered all the questions. Yeah, so in this case, for QuickBooks Online, Dext is the only OCR setup for now. Yeah, that is correct. So if you want to use ApprovalMax and some kind of OCR tool, then Dext is the only option for now, right? In Jira, it's different. In Jira, you could have different OCR tools because they are posting to Jira, right? So that makes us kind of OCR tool neutral in the Jira ecosystem. Thanks a lot for asking all these questions. I'm really happy that we have received 19 questions in Q&A and a couple in chat. This shows me that we have picked up a very important topic, and thanks a lot for everyone who has joined our session. You will receive the recording. If you have any questions after the webinar, do not hesitate, shoot us an email to support@approvalmax.com or to sales@approvalmax.com, and we will help you by answering the question, hopefully, if we have an answer. Thanks a lot once again, and have a great day. Thanks a lot. See you. Bye-bye.